Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm James Cockayne, the New South Wales Anti-slavery Commissioner. Thank you for joining me today for a progress update on the development of my strategic plan for 2023 to 2026. Many of you have been involved in various stages of the process to develop this plan, and I'm happy to be able to share an update with you today. This is not the launch of the formal plan, that will come a little later, but we're pleased to be able to share an update on progress with you. I'd like to start by acknowledging that I'm privileged to be joining you today from Gadigal land by paying my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extending that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today. Within the modern slavery context, I think it's also important that we acknowledge that in New South Wales and Australia, First Nations people are survivors of practices that today we would call modern slavery. They live with its impacts and legacies every day. Modern slavery and its legacies are all around us if we know where and how to look. So before we jump into the presentation, I'd just like to mention that we've switched off everyone's cameras and microphones to avoid any accidental unmuting. The reactions are on, so feel free to interact with the content as we go along. For clarity though, we are recording this session and we will make a copy of the recording available on our website. All right, so today we're going to cover a number of different topics. After a short introduction, we'll tell you about a few of the recent developments in the execution of my mandate. Then we'll come on to the strategic plan update itself before talking to you about exciting new developments around an advisory panel and an anti-slavery forum. So the aim of today's update is primarily to provide you that update on the strategic plan process. It remains in preparation, including consultation with the Minister in accordance with Section 11 of the Modern Slavery Act of 2018. We're aiming for a launch in mid-year. That probably means June, but because this remains a work in progress and consultation with the Minister is statutorily required, what we're doing today is providing you an update on the direction of travel, while details may yet change. We're also going to report to you, as I mentioned, on several other recent developments in the mandate around my office, regional visits we've been undertaking, inquiries we've been receiving, public procurement, industry and stakeholder engagement. And this is part of our commitment to you that I laid out as soon as I joined, as I took on the role, to ensure transparency in our work. So let me actually begin with that update on recent developments in the mandate. Now, excitingly, I now have a considerable, diverse and expert team supporting me. You see pictures of some of the team members here today. I am an independent statutory officer, but my office, which we refer to as the Office of the Anti-Slavery Commissioner, is based in the Office of the Secretary of the Department of Communities and Justice. We've laid out for you how the staffing levels have developed in recent months, so you get a sense of the capabilities that have been available to us in execution of the mandate to date. We now have 9 people on the books, including as an employee from the get-go, a lived experience advisor, someone with lived experience of modern slavery. We're trying to live up to the commitment we made early in our tenure to ensure that we place lived experience at the heart of program design, delivery and evaluation. We expect this team to grow just a little bit more through the middle of the year before we then move into the execution of the strategic plan. We've had fantastic support from a number of organisations along the way, including, for example, KPMG in our work on public procurement. And I'd particularly like to thank the James Martin Institute for Public Policy for the tremendous support they've provided us in developing the strategic plan I'm going to talk to you about today. It wouldn't have been possible without their support. I'm also pleased to let you know that we have a minimal baseline level of funding secured from the Department of Communities and Justice going forward. There will be further discussions needed about resourcing for particular programming and policy areas as those emerge, and that will ensue after we've got the strategic plan in place. Going just a little bit off script and probably giving my team real anxiety about now, I just wanted actually to thank the team for coming on board. This is a startup with considerable uncertainty around it. It always requires some bravery and risk taking to join a startup. These are incredibly expert team members who've taken left turns from areas as diverse as survivor advocacy, procurement law, support for victims of family and domestic violence, to come and help us build this mandate and to work together for real freedom for people who've experienced modern slavery in New South Wales and connected to New South Wales. I wouldn't be able to have got as far as we've already got without the tremendous dedication and expertise that the team has brought to this work. So I want to thank all of them very sincerely, and it's a privilege to come and work with you every day. One of the things we did recently was begin a series of regional visits that will be continuing to roll out through at least the rest of the year. We started with a visit to Tamworth and Armidale, and you see here pictures of some of the activities we undertook. I met with local councils who are working to take reasonable steps to ensure that they are not procuring goods and services made with modern slavery. We met with workers in the horticulture industry, people who've been involved in the resettlement in Australia of people with lived experience of modern slavery from overseas, and we did some community outreach through local media. We're looking forward to continuing that outreach through the course of the year. We'll be visiting Kempsey and Coffs Harbour in late May, then on to Griffith and Dubbo, Goulburn in mid-August, and you see a number of other destinations we intend to connect with later in the year listed there. We're really keen to meet with a wide variety of stakeholders in each place. The point here of the visit is to not only tell people in those communities about the work we're doing, but probably more importantly, to hear from them, to listen to them about the experiences that they're having of modern slavery risks and responses. So we'd really welcome your suggestions on people we should meet in these communities. Please feel free to send those suggestions to the email address that you see on the screen there. While we're organising our outreach, we're also increasingly seeing people come to us with requests and inquiries, requests for assistance, whistleblowers alleging issues in particular sectors or industries, and other general inquiries, of course, about issues related to modern slavery in New South Wales and beyond. We're using the powers provided to my office under the Modern Slavery Act to gather information and provide the mandated assistance and referrals. These include general powers of assistance and referral, duties of cooperation imposed on other New South Wales agencies and some civil society organisations. And in certain cases, there are reporting powers granted to me that we have been beginning to exercise. Another area of our work is public procurement. There have been due diligence obligations on over 300 New South Wales government entities, local council and other public entities since the 1st of July last year, and they'll shortly begin their cycle of annual reporting that for the first time requires them to report on the reasonable steps they're taking to ensure they're not buying goods and services made with modern slavery. Since I took up office, I've been working closely with a number of government entities and other public entities to develop a shared implementation framework that gives all of the affected entities the clarity that they need to report on these reasonable steps. We now have a working party with more than 30 members from across state and local government that's helping us develop a framework that will be fit for purpose. And that's going to include detailed guidance, tools, materials, and formal implementation arrangements. We're on track to produce and publish that guidance in mid-2023. And as required by the Act, my office will then move to support both implementation of the guidance through cooperation, support, advice, to some extent, facilitating training, and through the receipt of reporting and monitoring the effectiveness of the due diligence steps undertaken by these more than 300 entities around the state. You can expect us to develop the mandated public register of non-conforming entities later in the year and to make that public. This is the beginning, though, of a long journey working with all of these actors across the New South Wales public system to ensure that public money is being used not only not to buy goods and services made with modern slavery, but to encourage suppliers to take the steps they need to ensure that they are not producing goods and services for sale to New South Wales public buyers through the use of forced labour and modern slavery. Beyond public procurement, we also see a lot of requests for engagement from industry and other stakeholders, including, of course, people with lived experience, and we're increasingly directly engaging with those communities. We have undertaken a wide range of engagement activities with industry, unions, finance sector, civil society, government, knowledge institutions to promote good practice. On the 8th of May, I'm pleased to share with you that the UN Special Rapporteur on Contemporary Forms of Slavery, Professor Tomoya Obokata, will join us here in Sydney for a day. We'll be organising a number of activities for him to get to know the great work going on here in New South Wales, including engagement with parliamentarians, a closed-door workshop at the Paul Ramsay Foundation on housing insecurity, homelessness and modern slavery, and a panel and workshop at KPMG focused on stronger due diligence laws. If you'd like to join that panel or watch online, you're certainly welcome to. Please Google or search for Humanitix New South Wales Anti-Slavery Commissioner, and that will take you to a page where you can register to watch the live stream of that panel from 10 o'clock to 10:45 a.m. on the 8th of May. Now, the strategic plan update. The strategic plan provides a framework for developing the awareness, capabilities, practices and partnerships needed to address modern slavery in New South Wales. It's a statutory requirement under the Modern Slavery Act. We're given the option to create a plan for between 1 and 3 years. Most likely, our plan will probably be for 3 years, running from the 1st of July of this year or so to 3 financial years later, the middle of 2026. In its current draft, it outlines the Commissioner's objectives, priorities, and proposed implementing actions for that period. And we are organising it so that it will align, as is required by the Modern Slavery Act, with the National Action Plan to combat modern slavery. We hope that it will provide a foundation for raising public awareness about modern slavery and providing education and training as also required by the Act. And it will be available as required by the Act on a publicly accessible website with more details about where you'll be able to find it coming in due course. It's been developed to this point through extensive public consultation that began back in September 2022. In fact, over 2,500 people have engaged with us in the development of this plan. We started with a discussion paper that you can find on our website in September 2022, and we held a webinar at that point to introduce some of the key themes and hear from members of the community about what they'd like to see in the plan and what they think the key issues that need to be addressed are. Since then, we've received over 100 substantive written submissions in response to that discussion paper and through a survey run on the New South Wales Government Have Your Say website. More than 65 experts also joined us for in-person consultations across 4 working groups, which were supported in particular by the James Martin Institute, for which many thanks. And we've had direct consultations additionally with survivors and those with lived experience of modern slavery. The James Martin Institute also provided desk research and analytical support, and my thanks also to the University of Sydney for seconding a key team member for that work. The formal consultation on our draft plan with the Minister is yet to occur, I would stress, and that's required by the Act before we can move forward with it. We hope that will occur soon, and we intend to release the plan mid-year. The plan is, as I said, under development. So what we wanted to do with you today is provide you a sense of our direction of travel. And if you'd like to give us further input or information, we'd be very happy to receive it. We're happy to receive your approaches at any time. We'll be consulting closely with relevant stakeholders to receive their feedback as we implement the strategic plan, as well as during its preparation. And we'll work with them to take actions to implement the plan. What will the plan mean critically for people with lived experience? Well, we'd like to highlight 3 things. First, speaking directly now to people who may be watching with lived experience, it means that we'll try to help you to find the support that you need to really be free from slavery. The plan will include some basic details on how you can seek help and support and get the assistance that you need for meaningful and sustainable recovery. And a key part of the strategic plan will be the development of a new hotline to make this easier, as is required by the Modern Slavery Act. We'll be working to make the system easier and better to use. We'll be working to make it easier to access, for example, quality accommodation, care, advice, support, and justice. And critically, a key consideration in the plan is that we aim to empower you, people with lived experience. We'll be working to help you recover agency in your own life by giving people with lived experience voice and power in our work as beneficiaries and colleagues and as partners. And we'll work to give you greater control over the narratives, the programs, and the policies that affect you as a person with lived experience. Now, I want to take you through a number of areas that we've heard about during our consultations, and in each case, explain to you what that means for the way we're going to respond. Let me begin with the question of how to build prevention capacity. What we heard during consultations was a clear call for strengthening modern slavery prevention capabilities across sectors and functions. That was a call for more resources and training to improve identification of modern slavery risks in New South Wales and in relevant supply chains. There was also a call for better awareness of modern slavery indicators and appropriate referral pathways, particularly on the part of what we might call frontline workers. Many of those we consulted also pushed for cross-sector collaboration, information sharing, and improved data collection in order to understand where people are most at risk and to allocate resources to respond effectively. There was support for a modern slavery hotline, as is required under the Modern Slavery Act, to strengthen access, particularly ensuring that it provides quality responses available to those in need, ensuring that these are trauma-informed, effective responses. Interestingly, through the survey work we did, only 4% of respondents thought that New South Wales was currently doing well in identifying victims and survivors of modern slavery. So what this means for us in terms of our response, and excuse the formatting here, apologies, is that we aim through our work to ensure New South Wales government and non-government systems can identify vulnerability to modern slavery and prevent victimisation. We'll provide you much more detail about the actions we intend to undertake when we share the full plan with you, but you can expect that to be in areas such as the delivery of information, education and training, the development of cooperation frameworks, and potential work with sectors such as healthcare, criminal justice, family services and settlement services. We also heard a lot during our consultations about the need to enable remedy. We heard that people in New South Wales with lived experience of modern slavery often feel trapped by the legacies of that experience. Many survivors told us that they struggle to access essential services such as housing, primary care, and legal and financial advice. We heard about delays, limited referral pathways, cultural and linguistic barriers, and limited availability of trauma-informed and rights-based services. And we also heard that people with lived experience typically have a very limited role in designing and delivering anti-slavery efforts in New South Wales. Many people told us that survivors and others with lived experience should be playing a bigger role in shaping and delivering those anti-slavery efforts. So the objective of our work in response to these calls is to improve access of people with lived experience to effective remedy, including essential services, justice, self-determination and empowerment. Again, we'll provide more details of the specific actions we'll be undertaking, but they'll be around issues such as information sharing, coordination and resourcing of essential services for people with lived experience, addressing the barriers that they experience to effective remedy, and incorporating lived experience into our own work. And as I said, we haven't waited for the publication of the strategic plan to move in that direction, having already hired as one of our initial cohort of employees a person with lived experience as our lived experience advisor to help ensure that we're giving meaningful voice and power to people with lived experience in the design and delivery of all our programming and projects to come. As I mentioned, another area of our work, given my powers, relates to procurement, supply chains, and engagement more broadly with business. In this area, one of the things we heard was that some of the products that are being bought currently by government buyers, local councils, and otherwise with public funds, in fact appear to be made through modern slavery. The Modern Slavery Act, we were told, puts New South Wales in a position to take a leadership role in addressing modern slavery risks through public procurement. Government, suppliers, business and investors would benefit, we were told, from more training and guidance co-developed with industry to strengthen responsible procurement practices in line with the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights. So the objective of our work in response to these calls will be to show leadership in identifying and addressing modern slavery in supply chains and investment portfolios. Again, more details to come on the actions, but you can expect it in areas such as the publication of guidance on reasonable steps for public buyers that I mentioned already earlier, oversight of the reporting from those affected public entities, cooperation with specific sectors on the development of good practice or even codes of practice using one of my powers under the Modern Slavery Act. And we'll be looking to harness the data generated by all this work on public procurement and with private business for innovative new solutions that drive further uptake of responsible business practices. We also heard during our consultations that, of course, more work is needed to raise awareness and understanding of modern slavery in New South Wales, but at the same time, we heard concerns that widely peddled stereotypes of victim survivors can impede effective identification and action. We heard about a need to reframe the narrative on modern slavery, to put the empowerment of people with lived experience at the center of our work and of the stories that we tell about our work. So in response to those calls, the objective of our work in this area will be to make the case for anti-slavery in a convincing way, but also in an empowering way. We'll provide more details on the specific actions to achieve that objective in the plan, but you can expect it probably to be around issues such as targeted engagement with rural and regional communities, which you see we've already begun to lay the groundwork for, and targeting culturally and linguistically aware engagement with relevant communities. We're also thinking about how we can engage effectively with communications, media, public affairs professionals, so that the stories that get told about this work are more focused on the empowerment and restoration of agency for those with lived experience. And to make the case for continued work in this area, we'll be undertaking a range of empirical and policy research on several different topics, using our powers to, for example, submit reports to the New South Wales Parliament, where they're likely to be considered by the Modern Slavery Committee. Finally, we wanted to highlight another theme that emerged from our consultations, and that was the opportunity through collaboration for New South Wales to become a global anti-slavery centre of excellence. We heard pretty clearly from people we consulted that they see the role of the Commissioner as potentially catalytic, not about building our own capabilities here in the office, but about helping others across the community, business, unions, and government to become participants in anti-slavery work, to develop the capabilities, trust, and partnerships that are needed to facilitate effective collective action. So a collaborative approach is going to be required, with people with lived experience at the heart of these efforts, of course. And we're also quite clear from our consultations that that kind of work is not cost-free. It requires resourcing, financing, time, expertise. So we will certainly be looking through the strategic plan to try and play that kind of catalytic role as well, helping ensure that those that need access to resources to undertake this work have improved access to those resources of all kinds. So the objective of our work, responding to all these calls, is to lay the foundations for sustainable and inclusive implementation of the Modern Slavery Act. We're going to provide a lot more detail about this in the plan, but it'll likely involve actions in areas such as creating opportunities for information sharing, policy discussion, and programmatic collaboration, embedding modern slavery-related information and variables in existing data systems so that we can foster new data collection and sharing arrangements and have the evidence base to underpin effective interventions. And as I mentioned, improving access to resources for all affected stakeholders. There's two particular channels that we wanted to highlight for you in the remainder of our time with you today that we think will help with this development of a community of purpose. A new advisory panel that we'll be forming and an anti-slavery forum we're considering convening. So let me now come to each of those in turn and tell you a little bit about these, what we hope are exciting opportunities. First, let me begin with the advisory panel. So the advisory panel will provide advice to me, including in response to questions that I put to the panel or on its own initiative. And it will support efforts by me and subsequent commissioners to engage with people across New South Wales. Now, I should emphasise that I report to the New South Wales Parliament, not to this panel. The panel isn't a decision-making body, it's an advisory panel. But we are committed to creating this channel in order to ensure that I have ongoing access to the best possible expertise and insights to ensure that we have a community of purpose working together to fight slavery in New South Wales. Again, we recognise that such work is not cost-free, so we are committed to providing advisory panel members an entitlement to remuneration in recognition of their time and expertise. We'll be looking for, in fact, we are looking for, a few more details shortly, people from diverse professional backgrounds and personal experiences to be part of this panel. We're very keen to have applications from people with lived experience of modern slavery, people not only in urban, but also regional and rural New South Wales. We're keen to hear from people from culturally and linguistically diverse communities and from First Nations communities. We're keen to have expressions of interest from people from LGBTQIA+ communities and people living with disabilities. People of all ages, particularly young people, and people with varied professional experience, for example, from service provision, NGOs, business, unions, investments, survivor engagement, research, multicultural organisations. We're looking for diverse voices on this panel. Excuse me, I skipped a slide. Let me say a little bit about the involvement of people with lived experience of modern slavery. We are putting in place supports to safeguard all panel members' welfare. All panel members will be asked to abide by trauma-informed principles and commit to ensuring a safe space for sharing of diverse views and experiences. We're committed to providing a safe space for people to share their experiences if they so choose, but only if they so choose, and that includes during the application process. We're also open to discussing specific needs for accommodation in working methods or other supports that individual panel members may need at all stages of involvement, including during the application process, during participation, and indeed after membership of the panel. We can offer support to people with lived experience in preparation of the expression of interest to join the panel, should they be interested in that support. So how do you express your interest? How do you learn more, in fact, about this advisory panel? We've put a URL here on the screen that you can use to access a range of materials, the terms of reference, information about who we're looking for, and the kinds of questions that we would encourage you to ask yourself before you express interest in joining, a range of frequently asked questions, information for people with lived experience of modern slavery, and access to, critically, the expression of interest form. We are running this process in 2 rounds. So first round of expressions of interest closed on the 8th of May, and a second round for those who might want to take a little bit more time on the 31st of July. We'll be bringing 2 cohorts onto the panel in this first year. We aim to hold the first meetings of the advisory panel from mid-2023, and at this point the intent is to have roughly 4 meetings per year, 1 or 2 in person and the rest online. So we hope very much that many of you watching today will consider expressing your interest to join this advisory panel. Please do visit the URL. Here it is again, for those of you who didn't get it down the first time, medium.com/@anti.slavery. Please do take a look at all the materials there and consider lodging your expression of interest. This will be a critically important channel to ensure that I continue to receive frank and fearless advice and insights to ensure that the work that we're doing in the office is most effective in advancing anti-slavery causes here in New South Wales. Now, that won't be the only way to engage with us, however. We're currently considering developing an anti-slavery forum. This would meet twice a year. It will provide a regular opportunity for active community engagement, information sharing and learning, and development of new partnerships and practice arrangements. I'll also probably use the forum to provide informal updates on activities under the strategic plan through formal reporting on, though formal reporting on progress occurs through my annual report to New South Wales Parliament, which is usually due around October of each year. We'll centre lived experience in the work of the Anti-Slavery Forum, and we're considering having dedicated thematic components for different meetings, for example, in relation to public procurement or some of the other themes that we've touched on in this discussion today. We would really welcome your thoughts and suggestions on how we can make such a forum a useful opportunity for learning, for joint problem solving, and for fostering that community of purpose that we hope will emerge here in New South Wales as we all work together to combat modern slavery. Thank you so much for your attention today. Please scan the QR code to sign up for our newsletter. That's where you can get the earliest warning of these new developments. That's where we'll be first announcing how we'll be releasing the strategic plan when it's available in all its glory in the coming months. The plan itself will provide a lot more detail on the actions we intend to undertake to advance the objectives in the areas we've discussed today. We're very keen to hear from you at any time if you have any suggestions for how we can help combat modern slavery in New South Wales. Thank you all for your time, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Goodbye.